What up, guys? I'm putting on a face right now because I got scary story animations queued up. I don't know if I'm gonna do like a scary animated story every single Wednesday or like what, because I do get out of school early, so I don't think my Wi-Fi will be that bad. So yeah. Oh my God, I don't. Okay, I scanned through the video a little bit. You can see right here. Well, when I was scanning through it, it looked way better than this. I saw some creepy ass clowns. So, and it says a clown horror story. So, why isn't there any?
I used to work at the circus when I was a kid.
My!
And while many people believe this may have been the dream job of a 12-year-old girl, what happened behind the scenes is something I'd never forget.
In the background.
My name is Irina Orlov. I'm Russian. And before me and my family moved to the U.S., we used to live in Russia. I lived there for 13 years of my life, to be exact.
Yo, I swear I'm hearing shit behind
every
me.
second of it. Because before I was 9 years old, I already knew how to fly. My grandparents were trapeze artists. So were my parents. And I remember when I turned 8, my father said to me,
"Do you want to fly, Irina?"
And with a huge smile on my face, I said yes. My dad taught me everything there was to know about being a trapeze artist. And before I was 9, I was swinging through the air. At the time, we worked for a popular circus called Volkov's Show. I basically grew up at the circus, and I considered everyone there to be my family. From the jugglers to the magicians, the animal trainers, the strongmen, the tightrope walkers, basically each and every one of them. We talked together, ate together, and lived together. I didn't have any siblings, and neither did I have aunts or uncles, so it always felt like they were my huge extended family. And while all this was great, not everyone was close with each other. Our ringmaster, Mr. Volkov, didn't really associate with us, as he always had this superior aura and rude demeanor. All he cared about was the number of people who showed up to the shows and the amount of money he made. I didn't like him very much, as something seemed off about him. But things were still pretty fine, because as I said earlier, he really didn't talk to or associate with any of us. Well, with the exception of the clowns. Our circus had so many amazing acts, as we had an animal trainer who handled lions and elephants, an incredible tightrope walker who performed his act with no safety net, and my family's spectacular trapeze routine. But deep down, we all knew that the main attractions were the clowns. Now, our clowns weren't just your day-to-day normal clowns, as the act they performed seemed humanly impossible. I can remember the first time I saw them perform. Their act always started out with a really small wooden car.
That does not look that small.
And I would watch these two clowns bend their bones to levels that didn't seem human. They would start by bending their faces all the way into their ribs, while wrapping their arms around themselves. They would then proceed to hop into the extremely small wooden car, a car that wasn't physically capable of fitting 2 grown men.
Bro, it does not look that small. It looks like an average, like, I don't know. Doesn't look that small.
I didn't know how they always did it, but they always managed to repeat and deliver the same jaw-dropping performance every night that we had a show. I remember as a kid, I thought their arms were prosthetics because of how they dangled beside their bodies. They always looked like they weren't fully attached to their shoulders. But being backstage with them,
Did they dislocate their arms?
As they still used their hands to do other things. So it was clear that their arms were real. Due to the mind-blowing ways these clowns folded their bodies and bent in ways that weren't human, they were constantly the stars of the show. And while they were magnificent while performing, it was a totally different thing when the show was over. Our clowns didn't really associate with the rest of us, as they always stigmatized themselves. They never spoke to anyone, not even to each other. And the only person they spoke to was Mr. Volkov, as he always called them into his office an hour before the show. Living with them for some time made me realize
Whoa! Oh! Dude, no, no. The car looked so much bigger when it was on stage, like 10 times bigger than that. Okay, like what? It's not. Oh my God, bro! What is that? It's not even up to the shoulders. Staged. They had to stage this or something.
That they always looked sad, sick, and dead inside, which was weird, as they were meant to be clowns. Their behavior wasn't the only weird thing about them, as something even weirder always happened. Remember when I said earlier that the people at the circus were like my family? One of the reasons for that was because I grew up around them. Most of them had always been at the circus and were hardly replaced. Galena, the tightrope walker, had been with us since I was 5, and so were our jugglers and our animal handlers. But it was a totally different story when it came to the clowns, as they were always replaced on a monthly basis. I had known like 12 clowns since I had been at the circus. No one knew what happened to the other clowns or where they went. Normally, most of our clowns only performed for 3 or 4 shows before completely disappearing.
That's weird.
So many clowns had come and gone that I couldn't remember most of their names. But the ones who are currently working with us were called Dimitri and Andre. Now, our circus performed every 2 weeks, on the Saturday of the 2nd week to be exact. And I remember the last week leading up to our upcoming performance. My dad was talking about how he'd found a job in the U.S.
Why does she look so
and how
weird?
we were making plans to move. I was really sad about leaving the circus.
Dad.
So I decided to make my final performance spectacular. And after weeks of prepping, the day had finally come. The lights and tents were set, and we had a huge audience. I was ready to give it my all that night. But 50 minutes before our performance began, my dad said to me,
Irina, dear, we are missing a hoop. I'll need you to run to the storage trailer and get it.
I really didn't like going to the storage trailer because it smelled really bad and rancid in there.
Okay, this might be weird. Hear me out. Okay, Jeffrey Dahmer 2.0. He said, okay, let's add all this shit up. He killed, the clowns disappear every month, okay? What if their act is not good enough? He kills them, puts them in a vat of like an acid, like Jeffrey Dahmer, right? Says it's just, meat. The meat went bad, okay? Jeffrey Dahmer, okay? That's why she doesn't like going in there. Because Jeffrey Dahmer. Like, bro.
Performance, so I gladly agreed, saying, "Sure, Dad," before running to the storage trailer to get an extra hoop. On my way to the storage trailer, I saw our clowns, Dimitri and Andre, walking to Mr. Volkov's office. As a kid, my mind began to wonder what they always spoke about before every show. But I knew I had to get the hoop, so I shook off the thoughts and continued to the storage trailer. After some minutes, I finally got there, and somehow the rancid smell had become even worse.
He just killed them,
I didn't want to stay there long, so I quickly grabbed the hoop and left. On my way back, I saw the door to Mr. Volkov's office was slightly open, and no one was around as they were all about to perform. I don't know why I did this. I'm guessing it was just my inquisitive childhood nature. But I went to the door and peeked in, because I really wanted to know what they always did before the show. And what I saw scarred me for life.
He's killing them.
Both Dimitri and Andre were tied to long poles. They were gagged, and 2 long ropes were tied to each of their wrists. Only their torsos were tied to the pole, as both their arms were free. Then I saw Mr. Volkov walk up to Dimitri. He picked up the rope that was tied to Dimitri's wrist and said,
No bitching about this time. Our audience is huge, so suck it up.
And with that, he began to pull Dimitri's arm with all his might. I could hear...
He's dislocating their arms! I thought they did that themselves! Bro, I thought they would be like... Right? And then they would like do it, and then they would put their arms back in place. I thought they know how to do that. He does it for them? The shit would hurt so...
Hear Dimitri's muffled screams. as Mr. Volkov pulled his arm like he wanted to tear it off his body. And after a while of the extreme pulling, I heard a loud pop sound as I saw Dimitri's arm get pulled out of its socket. His left arm was now dangling like a noodle, and with no hesitation, Mr. Volkov then proceeded to do the same thing to his right arm. And this time it didn't take long before Dimitri's right arm was also pulled out of its socket. When he was done with Dimitri, Mr. Volkov proceeded to do the exact same thing to Andre. While he was pulling at Andre's arms, I noticed that Andre wasn't screaming. It was as if he had become accustomed to the pain. And just like the first time, after a while, I heard the same pop sound I heard when Dimitri's arms were pulled out of their sockets. And as I looked at Andre's arms, I realized that they too were dangling like noodles. When he was done, he untied them and ushered them to a table. They laid on their backs with their gats still on as Mr. Volkov went to get a hammer and chisel. He placed the end of the chisel on the base of Dimitri's ribs, and with no hesitation, he brought the hammer down on the chisel. I heard a horrific cracking noise, and I instantly knew that one of his ribs was broken. Dimitri began to writhe in pain as Mr. Volkov held him down, saying,
Don't move, or you'll puncture your lungs. I said no bitching about this night. I just have to break 3 more. Just 3 more, so you'll be able to fit like a glove in that little wooden car.
I watched him break Dimitri's and Andre's ribs. I didn't scream. I just watched him as he put those men in excruciating pain. When they were done, I was too scared to move, as my traumatized brain couldn't handle the morbid scene I had just witnessed. They began to walk to the door, and I still couldn't.
Let me get a thumbnail or something real quick. Okay, I'm gonna leave that in the video because it's kind of goofy, but put it. I don't know if that's the regular. So I don't know what the bro. Chill. Okay. Hair looks. I look goofy, bro. Okay. Sorry, I just had to get the thumbnail real
Run
quick.
or move, as the overwhelming fear had transfixed me. But I knew if I didn't do something soon, they would open the door and see me there. But no matter how hard I tried, my body just didn't obey me. Luckily, a few seconds before they opened the door, my father's voice pulled me back to my senses as he shouted,
Irina, where are you? This show's about to start.
Once I heard his voice, I ran to him. And when I finally reached him, I couldn't take it anymore as I immediately started crying. My dad then asked,
What is it, sweetheart?
And as I was about to speak, I heard Mr. Volkov's voice.
Gather around, people. This show is about to start.
Scared, I quickly closed my mouth as I watched Mr. Volkov walk up to me and my dad, with Dimitri and Andre right behind him.
They are not
He
fully
took
grown
one
men.
look at me and said,
What's wrong with your brat?
My father then replied,
But she's probably just said that this is her last performance at the circus, sir.
He sneered at me, before quickly retorting with,
Then do the act without her. We can't have her going out like that. It's not like anyone's coming to see her. It's my prized clowns they're all coming to see. This is why I hate children.
And with that, he stormed off. When he was gone, my dad hugged me and said,
It's okay, Irina. Just enjoy the show.
He then sat me on a backstage chair before leaving to go meet my mother. The show was great, but I cried through it all. And after everyone was done, it was time for the clowns' grand performance. As they began to wow the crowd with their bone-bending and body-folding feats, I felt sick to my stomach, because I knew how they were able to do all these things, and the magic that once surrounded these performances was gone. After they had successfully gotten in and out of the small wooden car, the crowd gave them a standing ovation, and right there in the middle of all those people, Andre dropped dead on the stage. I remember letting out a loud scream as I was completely petrified.
When there's no scream.
It took a while for the audience to realize what was going on, and as soon as they did, a huge panic broke out. It didn't take long before the cops showed up, and with one look at Andre, they realized that this man didn't die of natural causes. They called each and every one of us, who were his co-performers, for questioning. And when they started questioning us, Mr. Volkov was right there, trying to remove any suspicion, as I remember him shouting things like,
No one did anything. That man died of natural causes. This is an abuse of power.
When they eventually called my parents in for questioning, I was there by their side. I couldn't help myself, and I started sobbing. The policeman who noticed this then asked,
Is everything all right with your daughter?
My parents, who didn't know I was crying, then turned to me and saw tears rolling down my cheeks. They asked me if everything was all right, and I shook my head while saying, No. My parents then said,
If there is anything you know, Arina, you can tell us. We are here to support you.
At that moment, I looked to my far left and saw Dmitri standing in the corner with Mr. Volkov. He had the same sad look in his eyes as he looked back at me, and deep down, I knew he didn't have the courage to tell the truth, so I decided to do it for him. I told the cops everything I saw. When I was done, they immediately called Dmitri and told him his body was going to be inspected by a doctor. Once they saw proof that everything I said was true, they began to search our whole circus. The hammer, the chisel, and the ropes were all found, but something even more horrifying was discovered that night. 12 rotting bodies were found marinating in a crate in the storage trailer as they were being taken out of...
Oh my god, I'm so good, bro. Oh my god, Jeffrey Dahmer. Oh my god. Oh my god, I'm so good.
the room. They were all identified as our clowns, who had been mysteriously disappearing over the years. Mr. Volkov was immediately...
Bro, on God, I have not watched this ever in my life. On God. Bro.
arrested, and as they took him away, I remember him shouting Russian curses at me. He said things like,
Suka, Pista, she is a liar and an ungrateful brat.
He kept on struggling as they took him away, but when he was finally gone, I broke down in tears again. My parents started hugging me as they tried to comfort me, and while they were doing that, Dmitri walked up to me with a grateful look in his eyes. He then got on his knees and said one word.
Spasiba.
The fuck?
Thank you.
Oh.
The weeks that followed were so unraveling as everything came to light. It was revealed that Mr. Volkov hired illegal immigrants to work as his clowns. Dmitri, who was one of them, said that he was invited to the circus under the lure of a good job. He also said that when Mr. Volkov finally explained what he wanted him to do, he said no. But Mr. Volkov threatened to report him to the authorities if he didn't agree. He also went into detail about what was done to him, as he said the 4 ribs at the base of his rib cage were constantly broken. As Mr. Volkov said, this was to allow him to bury his face deep into his stomach when he folded.
Every time I see that, my
He
ribs
also
hurt.
revealed that his arms were repeatedly pulled out of their sockets, which is why they dangled like that. Apparently, this is also done so he could easily wrap them around his body without restrictions from the joint. It also came out that Mr. Volkov was the one who killed all 12 clowns, as
Well, no fucking shit.
he was responsible for the continuous breaking of their bones every 2 weeks before they could heal completely, in addition to the numerous punctured organs. The case became a huge scandal, and I was really sad that my time at the circus ended like that. But by the following week, I was already bidding them goodbye as I was on my way to the United States. I'm currently 31 now, and every time I see a clown, either at a kid's birthday party or an occasion, I always walk up to them and give them a hug.
Nah, that's
They always get
weird.
confused when
That's
I do
weird.
this.
That's
And when
weird.
asked, I always tell them, even clowns need people to make them happy.
Okay, I think I'm gonna end it here. Holy crap. That was insane. Like, what the fuck? What? He killed 13 people without getting discovered. Like, what? What? Bro, I don't know how, bro. Oh my god. But anyways, if you like today's video and if you like TMA Pro, subscribe. I'm gonna be clickbaiting the shit out of that. That I'm friends with Pierce. Yeah. Also, have a great day. And I'm Grassy, aka I almost said PMA Pro. I'm Grassy and I'm aka Dre. And I'm just out.